today a new parasha, which is Chayeh Sara. So Chayeh Sara, it's a very interesting parasha. A lot of things to learn from there, as usual. From everywhere, there's a lot of things to learn. But first, it says in the pasuk like this: "Vayu Chayeh Sara, 100 shana ve'esrim shana ve'sheva shanim shnei Chayeh Sara." Right? What's going on here? That Sarah Imenu now passed away from the world. Right? So there's a lot of things to learn from there, from this episode. First of all, number one is that Sarah Imenu lived only a short time, 127 years, right? Relatively short time. Why? Because Avraham Avinu lived 175 years. So that means that he had to go without a wife for a long time, without his original wife. He had to marry somebody else. But what happened over here? How is it that she lives much shorter lifespan than her husband? Usually the husband and wife go about the same time around. HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes it in a way that there shouldn't be too much of a discrepancy between them. So there shouldn't be, somebody sitting as a widow for a widower for a long time. Sometimes it happens. There's tragedies also that occur. But what we're saying is that how is it that Avraham Avinu had to let go of his wife such an early time compared to his life? So they say, right, there was an episode over here. What was the episode? The episode was, we mentioned this before, a few weeks ago, that when she was being mistreated, Sarah Imenu, with Hagar. Hagar, was her maidservant. She was a daughter of Paro, of the princess of Mitzrayim. But what happened was that she was mistreating her, and as a result of that, Sarah Imenu got angry at Abraham. He blamed it on him. So she said, right, that all this is your fault, that I'm being mistreated by this woman. She's not treating me in a proper way. I'm her master, I'm her mistress, she's my slave, and she treats me like I'm her slave. So she complained about that, and because she complained, what happened? She cursed her husband. Avraham Avinu cursed him, right? She said, what? That you should be punished for that you don't do anything about this, right? You should object, you should do something. You gotta stand up for my rights, for my position. That's what she said. So therefore she said, right, that Hashem should punish you for this. That's what she said. So what happened was that the Chazal say, right, that we learn from here a very important point. That a person shouldn't curse his fellow Jew, you shouldn't curse, especially your husband or spouse, whatever, you shouldn't curse. Why? Because when you curse, what happens is that sometimes the curse comes back on you, right? Why is that? When you curse a person for no reason, meaning what? That the reason is not justifiable. It's not really a justifiable reason. You think in your mind it's justifiable because you think you're always right. Everybody thinks that they're always, they're always correct. Everybody else is wrong, and he's the righteous one. Everybody else is wicked. So because of that, they curse people. They say this one should have this one should have that one. I just recently, I saw there was one lady who I saw recently. And she was being visited by some friends, and this and that. And as the friends came to visit her, she was, cursing them also. Why was she cursing them? Because this one did this to her, this one did this to her. You understand? Everybody did something else to her. So she remembered, all those things that they did when they came to visit. And she's, they think that there's something light to curse somebody like that. It's a very light thing. It's not a light thing to curse people like that. You have to be careful what you bring out of your mouth. You have to be. They say, by the way, that many times the curse actually comes true, because what happens is that when you curse somebody in Shamayim, in the heavens, they have a court case up there. You're convening a court case. You understand? So you're convening a court case, and they're going to check up everything, right? They say, okay, this guy, right, Mr. XYZ cursed this other guy, right? So now they're going to check, right? Is he justified what he said? Was he right? Was he wrong? Right? Did he have the right reasoning? Didn't have the right reasoning? All these things, they check everything, and that's exactly what happened over here, right? They checked up on her curse, and she was found to be guilty herself. And this is why she died early, prematurely. This is the reason why.
Now, when you say curse, you do that's not to shake.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
what about shaking it?
Oh,
that's justified. That's justified.
Right. That we call something else in Hebrew, right? The curse we call klala, right? Klala is a curse. But for what you're saying, what you're talking about, in Hebrew it's called nivul peh. You know what that means, nivul peh? Like dirty language, like filthy language, whatever. So, 4-letter words, in other words, what we call, right? So those things are called nivul peh. By the way, they're both considered to be a sin, you should know. This and that also, right? You see, how these people, I don't want to mention these names now, these people who like to just, they have these classic Georgian, language that they use, I don't want to tell you what they say, right? You know already, the classic stuff, all the classic words.
So we get punished for them
right.
also.
So they say, right?
Some of them are like poems.
Right, exactly. It's just like, some languages are very, And,
But you said
yes.
if it's not justifiable, there is some justifiable also.
Right. Well, when it comes to curses, sometimes it is justified, right? But when it comes to dirty language, it's really never justified. It's just always something.
So
just,
we're allowed to. We're actually allowed to put a curse on someone.
So that's what we're saying, right? That really in the Shulchan Aruch, in the laws of the Jewish people, it says, right, that you're not allowed to curse at all. You're not allowed to curse at all. But the truth is that there are some exceptions, though, to that. Even though it doesn't say in the Shulchan Aruch there are exceptions, but we do find, right, in the stories and the narratives in the Bible and all kinds of also things in the Talmud, in the Talmudic literature and the Midrash, we do find that there were curses made by big tzaddikim, big rabbis also, they made bigger curses. And there was a reason why they made it, but let's go through, right, this whole thing, because we have to understand this whole thing. So the way it works is like this, right? In terms of foul language, 4-letter words, right? That the Chazal say what happens is that when people use this kind of foul language, especially young people, what happens is that young people die later, right? Sometimes you have some young guy, right, 25 years old, died. How did he? What did he die for? Sometimes they say it's because of the foul language, that people are using, and this is what happens. Young people die sometimes.
20 years
yeah,
ago.
I told you that. That's very interesting. I don't remember, but your memory is better than mine. So. That's exactly what it is, So sometimes this also can be a very, very terrible thing, dirty language, but you have to understand also what dirty language means. What dirty language means is that it's like it has some kind of suggestive, like sexual, whatever, some kind of filthy, connotation. That's what it means, dirty language. You know what I mean? Because there are some things which are considered to be dirty, but they're not really so dirty. Like there are things also like that. Like let's say, for instance, you use the word, bastard, right? Let's say. So bastard really, is a real word. It's not really just a curse word or whatever. It's a real word. Bastard in English means mamzer. In Hebrew, that's an illegitimate. Child, right? That's what it means, a bastard. So usually the reason why it's considered to be a curse word, the word bastard, is because it's usually used, in just for to make fun of somebody or to mock them or whatever, to put them down. They're not really a bastard. He's not. He's a bastard. This guy, he's an illegitimate child. How do you know what? But they call him like that because to put him down. That's the whole thing. So that also is not allowed to do, right? That's already moti shema. It's also another sin involved there, right? So all these things.
No curse.
All right, exactly.
It's going to be hard.
Right? You know what it is? To be honest with you, many sins are done with a person's mouth. So you have to be careful what comes out of your mouth. Yeah. If a person keeps his mouth shut, he can save himself from a lot of problems, a lot of troubles in his life. Right?
I remember you telling me that talking behind someone's back sometimes is worse than killing them.
Yeah, lashon hara, moti shema, right? These are very big.
Actually killing them.
Right, very big. Yes, exactly.
Especially when it's falsehoods.
Absolutely, that's even worse, right? Absolutely,
because
there's no question about it.
You're giving a person a reputation.
Your memory is very good, Baruch Hashem. Okay, very good. You remember all these things
from what you taught me. So.
He has an amazing memory. This guy, amazing. So he remembers things like 20, 30 years ago that I said I don't remember myself. I don't remember myself. So anyway, let's get back to what we're saying. So when it comes to foul language, that's what it is. Foul language is definitely not allowed to use foul language, curse words. But when it comes to cursing somebody, so over here, right, what happened was over here that she had no reason to curse Avraham Avinu. It wasn't really his fault what happened over here. Just the opposite, right? Adarabba. What it really was is that she asked him to marry her, to take her as a wife. She was the one who instigated the whole thing, So what are you blaming him for? You're the one who set him up, and now you're blaming him. Like what kind of thing? I'm sorry, you have something to. You want to add something? So that's the way it works, So it was really her fault. This whole thing. She was the one who instigated it. So now you're coming up back and cursing him. Well, you're blaming him for everything. What's he to blame? Maybe he didn't even know about it. Maybe he didn't know. For sure he didn't know about it. It must be that he didn't know. If he would have known, he would have probably said something. So in the case like that, what are you cursing him for? What's the point? So they say, right? The Shlomo Melech says in the Mishlei, right, in the Proverbs, he says over there that when you curse somebody, right, for no reason. So you know what it resembles? He says that the Shlomo Melech, it's like when a person throws a javelin, and it comes back to him. You know, it's like, those javelins, right? Yeah.
Not javelin.
Right, exactly. Whatever it's called, right? There's all kinds of things. So those things, what happens is that they come back to you. So that's the way it is. When a person says a curse, which is not deserved, it comes back on him. That's what happens. Right? So this is exactly what happened over here. That's the whole thing. But there's also another thing, which is that what? The Chazal say another thing, which is that sometimes a person curses his fellow man, and he really deserves to be cursed. In other words, there is something wrong that he did to this person. He wronged him somehow, whatever. He stole from him, whatever he did, whatever it is, he did. So in that case, what happens is like this, right? That a person sometimes can be punished for that too, even though he really deserved that. How is that? If he deserved it, why is he punished? So they say, right, that first a person, before he curses his fellow man for stealing from him and whatever, he should first consider, more sensible routes. What does that mean, more sensible routes? Sue him, in court, whatever. Take him to court. Take him to Bet Din. Take him to, speak in front of rabbis. Whatever it is. In other words, get the problem, out in the open. And try to settle it, in front of somebody's a tribunal, whatever, some kind of a right. So that's what you have to do. That's what a person has to do. So if a person doesn't take that route, and he was able to do that. In other words, sometimes you're not able to do that. Why? Because this guy's a gangster, So he's not going to listen to any Bet Din. He's not going to listen to any tribunal. Just the opposite. He may choke the judges. He may kill them. He may assassinate them. Right? So a person like that, you can't deal with a person like that. There's no reason to, So if that's the case, then you don't blame you for that. But what we're saying is that you had a chance, you had an opportunity to take the person to court, and you could have gotten your money back or whatever it is, right, that he stole from you, whatever. So if you didn't do that, and you resort to cursing him without that, so what happens is like this, right? Now that person really deserved it, right? What you did. Okay, but still, since you didn't take him to court, so what they say is like this, right? They open up the books upstairs, and they look, and they say, well, look, the curse that he said was correct. I mean, he was wronged over here, this guy. So, okay, we're going to punish that guy. Just like he said, he deserves it. It's true. But what they do is, before that, that gets held up, on waiting, it's call waiting. So that they put aside. They say, okay, we'll put that aside. It's going to be later in the future. But before that, let's check this guy, right, the one who said the curse. If he also did something, wrong, what? In other words, that makes them check him also. He also gets checked. Understand? They check his record, right? They do a check. They open up the computer, right? They put his name in, chuk, and blah blah comes out, right? Exactly, right. And
with everything.
So what happens is now, right, they say, this guy also has some sins over here. Now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comes up everything. So before we punish this guy, we're going to punish first him. Why? Because he was the one who instigated the judgment over here. Why did he have to do that? He had a different avenue. He had a different approach that he could have taken. Instead, he took this one. So now we're going to also get him also. But first we'll get him, the first one. He was the one who instigated the whole thing. That's what they do, right? They get him first. And then they take care of the other guy later on, right? They're going to be taken care of. That's for sure, right? Because he deserves it. That's exactly what happened over here. So they say, right, that if that's the case, comes out that when a person is wronged and he has no way to retrieve his money, there is no way for him to do it. For instance, that he has no proof to take him to court. He has no evidence. He has no nothing. It was just like verbal thing, whatever, or anything like that. So in a case like that, where he has no way to get back his money or his whatever, his thing that he lost. So then if he curses him, he's allowed to curse him. In a case like that, then he's allowed to.
But doesn't it also say that God says judgment is mine, or?
Right, but since he personally was wronged over here, you know what I mean?
Vengeance is mine.
Right, exactly, for sure. But this is not vengeance, right? This is not exactly vengeance. It's just justice, more. You know what I'm saying? Because vengeance means what? If you hit me, I hit you back. That's vengeance, right? That's called vengeance. But here it's like you stole from me. Give me back my money. You took my life away from me. But they say, right, when you take for a person, even the smallest coin, a quarter, right? It's like you took his life. So in a case like that, they will punish him, So it depends really on the case. But there's also another thing, which is sometimes, the big rabbis, the big sages, and they curse people not because they wronged them personally. It wasn't something personal. And this is, by the way, the real reason why a person should curse somebody. Not because he wronged you somehow, he did something to you, to take away your kavod, your honor, your dignity, whatever. That a person can forego that sometimes. Say, listen, it was all from Mina Shamayim. It was from God. Everything was from God. Whatever happened. Let's go on. some people are big enough, large enough to say that, right? They just want to go on with their lives and forget about these things. Whatever, Hashem will take care of everything. What's in my business, okay. But there is one thing that a person sometimes has to curse because of why? Because a person is doing damage to the community, you understand? Spiritually damaging the community. He's doing all kinds of things, to make people do sins. Causing them to sin, causing them to stumble in all kinds of spiritual problems. So a person like that, other Rabbi, it's a mitzvah to curse him. You should curse him day and night. Like until he dies. Until he gets buried under the ground. That's what you should do. A person like that, there's no excuse. Why? Because you're not cursing him for your own honor. You're cursing him for God's honor. That's something else. It's a different story, right? Yeah. That's why they say, right, that the famous saying of Chazal, right, Hashem Reshaim Yirkav, right? What does that mean? That the name of the wicked should rot. So what the Chazal learn from there, right? What does it mean rot? How's the name going to rot? It's not a piece of fruit that's going to rot. What does that mean? So what it means is that every time you mention his name, say Imach Shemo v'zichro, you should be blotted out. You have to curse him also. That's like Hitler, people like this, what I'm saying? Yeah, every time we mention their name, we also give them a nice blessing, nice, that's the way it has to be. That's something else. In a case like that, it's a mitzvah to curse people like that. So they should be stricken down and die, and leave us alone, stay away from us. That's something else. It's a different.
Remember we learned that from Rabbi Lazari?
Yeah, it could be. Your memory is better than mine, as I told you. I wish I had your memory. What can I tell you? Okay, you have to teach me your secret. You have to teach me your secret. you must have a secret something. Okay, so anyway, getting back to what we're saying, that's exactly what happened. But also the Chazal say, in the Torah we have a concept like this, right? Zeh v'zeh gorem. You know what that means? That usually when something happens like this, when a person dies, and we say, oh yeah, well this was the reason why he died, because he cursed this guy, and like we just said now, you should know that things are not so simple in the world, What does that mean? Usually there's more causes than that. Usually it's not one cause. There's several causes that come together, and that really does hits very hard. Because one cause sometimes would not be strong enough to do it, but when you have several causes, so then it totally does, wipes it out. That's what it does. So here also, there was another cause, you understand? Come join us, Shabbat. God bless you. You're invited. Okay. God bless you. So, okay. Very nice. He's so good. Okay, so what happens is that we have to also understand there was also another reason over here why she died. The more immediate reason, right? This was the old reason, more under the carpet. But this was something more immediate. What happened? That we just mentioned, right, a few weeks ago, that there was the Akedat Yitzchak, right? That there was a binding of Yitzchak. I think it was last week we talked about. So anyway, what happened was over there that when they left the house, Sarah Imenu, right, was at home, and they had to go to do the binding on the Temple Mount, right? That's where they did it in Jerusalem. So what happened was that they, Sarah Imenu asked them when they're leaving the house, "Where are you going today? What's going on?" They said, "Oh, yeah, we're going to study Torah. We're going to pray, something like that, whatever." They didn't tell her the reason why, because you know how women are, right? If they're going to hear something like that, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna cut your son's throat today." How do you like that? What's going to be? She's going to go crazy, right? She'll probably commit suicide. And so they knew exactly what's going to happen, right? The women are very, very emotional about these things. So what happened was that they hid it from her. But then later on, what happened was that after the whole thing was over, the whole episode was over. Now they were coming back, but once she found out, right, that this happened, so she died, out of shock. She was so shocked by this whole episode of the binding, of Yitzchak, almost died. Her son almost was killed. So she fainted, and that was it. Never got back up. That's what happened.
Question:
Yeah.
Can you remind us, please? Last week we went, but I forgot. Hashem told him, "Get your favorite son, get your youngest son."
Right.
Why didn't he tell him just get Isaac and that's it?
Right. So we mentioned the reason is there's two reasons over there, right? One is because they say the Chazal that when a God gives a command to a tzaddik, he wants to give it to him in a way to get more reward, right? So every word that he tells him, every commandment, has also another reward in it. Right? So he wanted to give him more and more reward, but there's also another thing, right? Which the Chazal say he didn't want him to be in shock. If you tell him right away, like take your son Yitzchak, they'll be like, maybe faint, out of shock. So he told him like slowly, your son, this, little by little, gradually, getting into the whole thing. And this way, right, a person can be saved sometimes from going into shock. This was also another reason why, God bless. So let's go on. As the Chazal say, right, all kinds of drashot about this also, that it's very strange over here how the pasuk is organized over here, right, arranged. Why? Because it tells you her age, and she was 127. But it should say, 127, right? But it says 7 and 20 and then 100, 3 times over. What is this business? Just tell me the number. What are you trying to do over here, right? Confuse me over here. So this was also, there's also meaning over here. What does that mean? That they say that when she was 100 years old, she was 20, and when she was 20, she was 7. What does that mean? That the Chazal teach us, right, that a person gets only punished from the Bet Din, the Mala, Shelemala. By the way, there's different grades in terms of punishment and sin for a person. What does that mean? When a person is 13, now he has to do all the mitzvot in the Torah when he's bar mitzvah, right? That's the reason why we celebrate bar mitzvah, not to have a big party and dump $50,000 in the garbage, right? That's not the reason why we do a bar mitzvah, right? Exactly. That's not the reason, right? We can skip that, by the way, the whole thing, right? The party and this and that. It's not really important at all. This whole party, you should know. There's no.
You don't like those parties.
It's not really in terms of halacha. It has really not much, not much significance.
I remember 20 years ago when when the transformation started with you. You called the parties orgies. You remember?
Okay, this one I'd rather not remember, but whatever. Okay, so
Mike, there's a bar mitzvah tonight. No, David, I don't go to those orgies anymore.
Oh my God! Wow.
Your own hidden microphone.
It's okay. It'll give more color to the whole thing.
Oh my God, I apologize.
Don't worry about it. I have no problem with that. There's truth to everything, the truth to everything.
I forgot.
So it's okay. You're fine. You're fine.
Everything is
taken.
So
let them know how he feels about our community.
So anyway, right. But what I'm trying to tell you guys is really the truth. Truthfully speaking, right? Seriously speaking. This whole lavish, bar mitzvah thing, has really gone too far, a little bit too far. I'm not telling you that it's not allowed to do that, I'm not telling you can do whatever you want, you can make a big party if you want or whatever, no problem with that. But what I'm saying is that it's losing the meaning of the bar mitzvah, because it's becoming just like a showcase kind of thing. So it's kind of like the whole meaning of the bar mitzvah is in the background somewhere in the back. You can't even find it. You have to look for it with a microscope, what it really is about, which is doing the mitzvot. And we're just talking having a party and, enjoying yourself and how many courses were there, and how many types of wine, and whatever, talking about things which are not really the most important things.
And
you have to remember that. Exactly. So, this thing has really been blown out of proportion. But anyway, what we're saying is, Rabbi, that when a person is 13 years old, right, he's really now liable to do mitzvot. To be honest with you, if you ask these boys, some of them who were doing the bar mitzvah, they just did a party yesterday, right? And you ask them the next day, tell me, what's the whole significance of the bar mitzvah? He might not even know what the significance is. Some of these boys, they don't have to do mitzvot now. I have to do all the mitzvot now. 613 mitzvot I have to do. He might not even know that. He may know he has to put tefillin now. Whatever. That he may know, but because he put tefillin.
Rabbi, I wanted to ask you. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. The 613 mitzvot.
Yeah.
We have to do that on a daily basis.
Not really, because it doesn't come up every day, every mitzvah, right?
Okay.
Whenever it comes up, you have to do it. That's what it is, right? Because some mitzvot are time bound, they only come up. There are some mitzvot that come up only once every 7 years.
Right. Okay.
There are some mitzvot that come once in a lifetime. There are also things like that, right? Like a person who got married only once, right? So he only did the mitzvah one time, to get married. He only got married once, so how many mitzvot, once he did it. Okay, so,
Well, 3 times he made 3 mitzvot?
Yeah, he did 3 mitzvot, yeah. Not only that, by the way, that every time he gets married, every time he remarries, he also gets another bonus, right? Which is what? That he gets forgiven for all his sins. Every time you get married, they forgive you for all your sins. Right? Nice idea, no?
So Hollywood does a lot of mitzvot.
God bless them. Okay. God bless Hollywood. Okay. So, anyway, Rabbatai, now there's a lot of Persians over there living over there. That's why I said God bless Hollywood. There's a lot of Jews over there, Persians, Baruch Hashem. They're living over there in that area. Okay, so, getting back to what we're saying, Rabbatai, is that 13 years old, he has to do all the mitzvot. A woman, 12 years old, right? It's not 13.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's also another stage after that, which is what? That really, even though you're liable to do all the mitzvot, but there's bet din shel mala, yesh bet din shel mata. What does that mean? There's the earthly bet din, the court down here, right? Which is the bet din that we have. But there's also the heavenly court. So what happens is that now when you're 13, the earthly court can punish you if you did a sin. If they found out what you did, witnesses came, they testified, they can punish you for that. Today, by the way, we don't have this system anymore. It's going to be coming when Mashiach comes. But now we don't have this kind of bed din today. We have usually the bed din deals with only two things basically, right? Which is monetary cases, money disputes, and marriage matters, marriage, divorce, this kind of thing, right? Yeah. So because they don't really don't have the authority today to do capital cases, to kill somebody, they don't have the authority today to do that. So anyway, getting back to what we're saying is that when a person is 20, now the bet din shel mal, also the heavenly bet din can also punish them. Until then, even though he's liable to do all the mitzvot for 7 years, they can't punish him yet, the heavenly bet din. So, and by the way, this is an interesting thing because sometimes a kid is like 18 years old, and he thinks he can, he's like free, he can do whatever he wants, kind of like, when kids are 18, they think that the whole world belongs to them. They can do whatever they feel like. They're very free. They're very, they're very confident in themselves. They don't realize that in another 2 years, all the sins that they're doing now may come back to haunt them. Because I'll tell you how it works. What happens is like this, right? They give you, when you're 13, you start accruing all your sins, right? Everything gets recorded, right? And then, if you do tshuva until you're 20, and you erase all your sins, when you do tshuva, it erases everything, right? So what happens is that if you do tshuva before then, they won't punish you for those sins anymore. Because you got rid of them, you clean them out. That's what it is, right? But what happens is that sometimes a person doesn't do tshuva until 20. He thinks that he can just go on forever like that. He got comfortable with it. He got used to it. He's accustomed to it already, It's hard for him to get, once it becomes a habit, it's very hard to get rid of it. So what happens is now that they punish him, if he's still doing the sin that he was doing when he was 13, they punish him for what he did now, also when he was from 13 and on, all the 7 years that he was sinning, they punish him. They get him for everything. Yeah, exactly. They get him for everything now. Why? Because he didn't do tshuva on that. So why am I telling you this? Is because over here, the story was that Sarah Imenu was such a big tzaddiket, she was such a righteous woman, that when she was 100, she was like 20. What does that mean? Just like a person who's 20, meaning what? Not yet finished the 20th year. That he's not punished for anything. So when she was 100, also she had no sin, just like a person who's not punished when they're 20. You understand? That's what it means. And when she was 20 years old, she was beautiful. She had the beauty of like a 7-year-old child. That's why it says 7, right? What does that mean? That usually, like kids who are like 7 years old, that age, they're very cute. They're very like like they're shiny and they're very the skin glows and there's something like a charm to them. That age, whatever. So what it means is that when she was 20, she had also that kind of charm, like a childish kind of charm that a little child has. So she was a very beautiful woman. As they say, the Chazal, right? Sarah Imenu was not just a beautiful woman, there's a dime a dozen, you can find beautiful women everywhere. That's not the issue, right? But she was so beautiful, they say, right, that, you sometimes you see like a beautiful lady, one here, one there, but if you really would put them together, in one like place, and look at them, like one really doesn't look so beautiful anymore. Why? Because this one is so much more, it makes the other one look like not really anything special at all.
Start comparing.
Exactly, right. Once you put them, in like a lineup shot, it's not going to be the same thing. So they say, right, that she was so beautiful, Sarah Imenu, that if you would put another woman, beautiful woman next to her, she would look like a monkey. Not only like she didn't look beautiful, looked like a monkey. Can you imagine that the person looks like a monkey? So that's how beautiful she was. So that's exactly what the Chazal is saying here, right? There's a lot of things here to cover in this parasha. But anyway, going on. So it says, "Vatamot Sarah b'kiyat arba." He Hebron be'eretz Canaan vayavo Avram lispot Sarah b'divkota. So what happened was that he now came to bury her, right, and to eulogize her at this point, and he did everything he had to do. According to halacha, there's things you have to do when a person has a death in the family. There's rules that he has to follow, customs and so forth, so on. He eulogized her and everything. But then what happened was ויקום אברהם מעל פני מיתו, וידבר אל בני חטא לאמור. So now he comes, right? He knows Avraham Avinu. He had a very special knowledge about this, by the way, which is what? That he knew that he can't just bury his wife anywhere. She has to be buried in a very particular place, which is Marat HaMachpelah. And he also had to be buried there when he died, but right now he has to worry about her. He's still alive. So what happens is that he goes now to the Bnei Chet. Why? Because they're the ones who own this place. They had the ownership on it. So he went there and he said, listen, can you do me a favor? Who owns this place, right? This cave, Marat Machpelah. This is what we have in Hebron, right? The building over there. You ever been there, by the way, Marat Machpelah? You ever been there? It's like a tourist attraction, It's a very beautiful, it's a very interesting place. So what happened was that he goes there and he asked them, who owns this? They say, there's a guy, Ephron. He's the one who owns this place. So he says, do me a favor, go to this guy and, ask him to sell this place to me. Because I have to, I need a burial plot, basically. And this is the plot that I want. So they tell him, they said, no problem, he says, they tell him, you're like the Prince of God over here, like you're a big figure over here, big personality, everybody knows you, so nobody's going to refrain from giving you what you want. Just ask for it, whatever, we'll give you whatever, wherever you want to bury her, we'll let you bury her over there. It's not a problem for us to do that. So what happened was that they went to Ephron, and they spoke to him about this. So they answered like this, right? Shema'enu Adoni Nasi Elohim, אתה בתוכנו, במבחר קברנו, קבור את מתך, איש ממנו את קברו לא יכלה ממך מקבור מתך. That's what I described to you now. ויקום אברהם וישתחו לעם הארץ לבני חטא. Right? It says over here that once they agreed to give the burial plot to Avraham Avinu, so he was so happy about this, he was so content that he got up and bowed down to them. Prostrated himself on the ground. Can you imagine? He bowed down to these people. So the question is, right, why did he bow down to them? What's the reason why? Because they told him like this, we consider you to be like, the Prince of God and everything, you're a big rabbi, and we'll give you everything you want, whatever you want is yours. So he humbled himself, nevertheless, made himself like humble in front of them, meaning to say like, I don't consider myself anything special, I'm just a regular guy, but I just want to buy this burial plot to bury my wife. So do me a favor, give me the burial plot. So it says, וידבר איתם לאמור, אם יש את נפשכם לקבור את מתים מלפניי, שמעוני ופיגעו לי בעפרון בן סוחר. So he tells them, right, well, go to Ephron and ask him if he's willing to sell this plot to me or not. ויתן לי את מערת המכפלה, אשר בקצה השדה ובכסף מלא יתנה לה לי, בתוככם לאחוזת קבר. Right, so he tells them like this, he says, what, I'm willing to pay full money for this, right? No discounts, I'm not asking for any discounts. Give me the full real estate value. I'll pay you full cash. No monkey business. No favors. No discounts. No nothing. Right? I don't want anything like that. He tells them, I'll bring you full price. So that they answer him like this, right? Ephron yoshev betoch bnei chet, vayen Ephron achiti et Avraham beoznei bnei chet lechol baei shar iro lemor. So now Ephron is sitting there, right, and listening to all this, and he says, "Oh yeah, that's me. I'm the one who owns that place, right?" So he says, "No problem. You want to buy that place?" So he told him like this: "Lo Adoni, shema'eni hasadeh natati lecha ve'amara asher bo lecha netatia le'enei bnei ami netatia lecha kevor metecha." So he tells him, "You know what? You want to pay full price for this? That's what you're trying to tell us, right?" He says, "No way." He says, "Listen, what's it between me and you? This little burial plot. I'll give it to you for free. What's the problem? You shouldn't have to pay for a burial plot. Yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing to me. It's nothing to you. Take it for free and do what you want to do with it. I don't care about it." So Avraham Avinu hears that, right? That he wants to give it to him for free. As if he wants to give it to him for free, right? He really had something else in his heart, as we're going to see, right? וישתחו אברהם לפני עם הארץ, וידבר אל עפרון באוזני עם הארץ לאמור, אך אם אתה עלו שמעני נתתי כסף השדה, קח ממני ואקברה את מתי שמה. So Avraham Avinu says, no. He says, I don't want this place for free. Don't tell me about free. There's no free lunch, right? Let me pay for it full price. You tell me what the full price is, I want to pay the full price. That's what he tells them. So once Ephron hears this, right, now he knows that he has the opening now to get the real money, right, that he wants. So he says, right, ואין עפרון לאברהם לאמור לו, אדוני שמעני ארץ 400 שקל כסף ביני וביניך, מה היא ואת מתך קבור? So he says, you know what, listen, if you really want to pay the full price, you really want to know how much this plot costs? He says, I'll tell you, it's only 400 shekels. In those days there was a lot of money. Not like the shekels we have today, right? So he tells him, it's 400 shekels. No, what's the big deal? Okay, you really want to pay for it. I'm not going to stop you. You do it, do your will, right? Whatever you want to do. So in the end, what happened was that Abraham Avinu took out, he had the bag of money, right? Opens up the bag, and starts counting up the money, right? And Ephron sees, right, that he's not only giving him the money that he asked for, 400, but he's also giving him like in prime money. What does that mean? In those days, there was a certain like international money which you can like use to pay anywhere in any country, like euros like that in all of Europe. You can use in Europe anywhere, right? Whatever you can pay over there. Dollar is also like that, right? Dollar goes everywhere, whatever you can pay usually with a dollar anywhere. So things like this, right? That's why it gave him like international big money, like heavy duty silver. So it gives it. He starts counting out, and Ephron sees, oh wow, this is like heavy duty money over here this guy's giving. It's not regular money. So he's very happy, So he takes it, puts it in his pocket, right? And says, wow, so he's very happy, He offered to give it to him for free, and in the end he gets, right, a big bonus, just the opposite. The Chazal say, by the way, that if you really look in the depths of what happened over here, this transaction that occurred, on the outside it looks like something very innocent, right? But really, they say the Chazal that this guy was not so honest. This guy Ephron, you know what I'm saying? He was like a crafty guy. What does it mean, crafty? He really didn't want to give it to him for free, you understand? But he had to say that as like a gesture, to make himself look like, he's a nice guy, he's a righteous man, he's an honorable, noble person, right? Noble man. So that's the reason why he told him all this, right? He didn't really mean to give it to him for free. So once Abraham Avinu told him, listen, I don't want it for free, tell me the price, what's the real price? So he actually, once he heard that, right, he actually made like an inflated price, understand? That was like a big heavy duty price, which is actually a little bit more than the value of the place, understand? So what does that mean? That the Chazal say from here, we learn a lot, that this guy was a Rasha. We see from here. Why? How do we know he's a Rasha? Because they say, right, that there's a lot of signs, by the way, you can see a person as a Rasha or a Tzaddik. One of them you should know is how he talks. Like we just mentioned a half hour ago, what do we say, right? That cursing is a problem, using foul language. A person always, every other word that he says is foul language, right? That means something is wrong with his neshama. Something is not right with his soul. Every it's like, oh my God, you gotta like do bleeps all that. Bleep, 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 bleep. You gotta bleep everything out with this guy, Everything is a bleep. He never says anything normal in his life, this guy. So a person like that, you can also see by the way he talks. He's a Rashad, this person, who always curses, always says 4-letter words. But here we're talking about something else, right? How do you also see how a person does business? You'll see if he's a Rasha. What does that mean? That this guy doesn't do business in an honest way. What does that mean? That they say, right? The Chazal. How do you see if a person is Rasha? He'll promise you the whole world, but in the end he won't give you nothing. He'll say everything. Yeah, I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you that. Come to my house. I'll give you all the best foods. In the end, it drops you a couple of pieces of fruit and tells you, oh yeah, enjoy. Well, but this is that's what you invited me for. But you told me, you understand? So, by the way, what we're saying over here is that the Rasha is so bad, because the real Rasha, he won't give you nothing. He'll tell you everything, but he won't give you nothing. That's all thing. You understand? There's nothing he'll get. He'll tell you, oh, my wife is sick. I'm sorry, I can't bring you now, over to eat by me. So, in the end, you get nothing for the guy. He'll promise you the whole world, right? You'll be dreaming about all kinds of foods. You'll be sitting, you get like dreams in your head about all this and all that and everything. But in the end, oh, my wife is sick, sorry, let's take a rain check. Okay, we'll do it next year, yeah. So that's how Rasha is, right? How do you see if a person is Rasha? He'll tell you everything, but it gives you in the end nothing, zero, right? Shishkas dagidips, that's it. That's it. So that's a Rasha, you understand? The Tzaddik is just the opposite, right? The Tzaddik, he tells you, I'll give you a little bit, let's come to my house, I'll give you something, a drink, and a drink and a snack, in the end it gives you a big meal. You see, right, the person is a Tzaddik. Why? Because he says a little, but he does a lot, right? So that's one of the differences between a Rasha and a Tzaddik. There's also many other differences, but this is one of them, right? So the Chazal tell you, right, if you want to know a person's character, you see by the way he does business. When a person doesn't do business in a straight way, he's crooked.
According to the Torah, most of mankind, which category do we fall into?
You see what he's asking?
Are most of us tzaddik or most of us bad?
Good question, right? The Rambam says about that.
No, I'm just wondering.
Most people are Benoni. You know what's Benoni? In the middle.
Because the last time you invited us to your house to have a big meal.
I have nobody to cook.
He invites me all the time. He takes me to the restaurant.
Not only you, me.
Shh, don't tell anybody I told you. Okay. Don't wanna get him get him in trouble now. So what do you call it? So what we're saying is, Rabbi, that that's how you see a person's character, right? A person, the way he does business, it shows you, right? This is just a very one case, right? But there's also other cases, you know how it is, right? People give you their word, they promise you up and down, and then in the end, you know, they renege on their promises.
We're talking about the guys that on Yom Kippur yell out 2,000 Tiskela Mitzvot and never bring money.
That's also another one. Interesting, right? That's also an interesting one. And by the way, the Gemara talks about that very harshly about this. You know, the people who make donations, right, to the shul or to any other place, whatever, to yeshiva, and then they don't pay those donations in the end. They say, right, that what? Because of that, there's all kinds of things that are withheld in the world, like rain doesn't come, you know, sometimes, and all kinds of things. So it causes a lot of punishment to the world. You know, that people make pledges and they don't pay their pledges. It's a very real problem, by the way. You may be joking, but it's actually a very real problem. Talk to the Gabbaim over here; they'll tell you some stories about what happens, how the people are, you know, saying all kinds of things, and then for 10 years you don't see them after that. It happens all the time. It's a very common thing.
Wow.
It's a very common thing.
Sounds like I wasn't joking.
It's not a joke, believe me. It's a very real. It's a reality. It's reality.
It happens everywhere.
It happens everywhere. Sure, everywhere. Not only here. So it happens everywhere. So that's why the Chazal say, right, a good piece of advice, by the way. When you make a pledge, right, to make a donation, say Beli Neder, right? Because this way, right, just in case you're not able to do it, whatever, so it shouldn't be a neder on you. It shouldn't be a vow.
Again, getting off the topic, I apologize. When is God going to realize that humanity doesn't deserve to survive? Isn't he tired of watching?
What's happened during the flood? He already realized it a long time ago.
We're not going to...
You want to bring another flood on us? No, still don't worry.
He's testing us and testing us and testing us.
He's testing us.
It's a joke, Jimmy. It's a joke.
Yeah, by the way, in one of our lectures over here, we spoke about that we said that really the truth is that in almost every generation, deserves to be destroyed. The whole world deserves to be destroyed. So what's the only thing that saves it? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a pledge at that time, after the flood, that he wouldn't bring another flood like that again. You know, so that's if it wasn't for that pledge...
How long ago was the flood?
The Noach was like, you know, 6,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, you know, less than 5,000,
6,000
and change.
Years ago? Or
regular years, you know, regular years.
According to Torah, there's no other years. It's 5,800? No?
Yes, that's what we have.
In
right.
reality, the world is 40 billion years
It's
old.
not really reality, it's just some scientific things we're going on, some theories, whatever. If you think that's the reality, you have another thing coming. Forget about that. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. But anyway, we have to make a lecture on that one also. But that's a big lecture, by the way. It's a very important lecture. People don't know these things. A lot of people have all kinds of misconceptions about these things. So anyway, Rabbi, getting back to what we're saying, Sarah Imenu was a big tzaddiket, but Avraham Avinu over here, he had to encounter this guy who was dishonest. But in the end, he got what he wanted. He got the Marat Machpelah. By the way, the question is, you know, there's also another thing, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised the whole land of Israel to Avraham Avinu anyway. Right? So the question is, why did you have to buy it at all? I mean, just go and tell them, listen, this is my land. You know, give it up right now. It's mine. You know? Give me my property. You know, you're stealing my property. Why didn't he do that? The truth is, the Chazal said, by the way, that he actually alluded to that over here. He didn't say it outright, but he said it in a way that also alluded to that. What does that mean? He alluded to the fact that that if you're willing to sell me the land, fine, very good, I'll pay you full price, you know, I have no problem with that. But if you're not, I'll take it by force. That's what he told them. That's what he alluded to. Right? What does that mean? That he was going to make a war with these people to get the land. He was willing to do that too. Can you imagine? So you see from there, by the way, how important it is. You know, this burial plot turns out to be, you know, a very, very important thing, that he's willing to lose his life for that, you know, to risk people's lives to get this burial plot. It's an amazing thing. Why is it so important, by the way? You know, why can't you just go to Mount Hebron over here, Main Street, right, and bury over there? Why have to bury over there? What's the reason? What's the reason for that? So the truth is, Rabbi, that Marat Machpelah is not just any place. It's not just any burial ground. They say the Chazal that over there is the Petach the Gan Eden. It's the opening of Garden of Eden is over there. You know, so when you're buried over there, that means that you have like interaction with that garden, you know, Gan Eden. You have interaction with that area. You can just like go in and out, kind of like, you know, you have all kinds of access, all kinds of issues that are going on there. So meaning what, that Avraham Avinu, he considered it to be a very vital thing to acquire this land. with full money, not just to rely on the fact that he's going to inherit it, from God.
And how big is this place?
How big is it? By the way, that's a very good question what you're asking, because the truth is, right, it's very deceptive, the whole thing. Why? Because when you look at it from the outside, it looks like a little piece of, little building, like probably the size of the shul, maybe twice the size of the shul, I don't know exactly. So, right, it's not really so large on the outside. But when you go down to that cave, which is subterranean cave, so then you're talking about a very large piece of land there. It's huge.
From the outside, how big is it? One city block?
From the outside, it's like it's
so
nothing.
he paid 400 shekels for one city block.
Right. But the truth is, inside there, as we said, right, it's very, very large. And by the way, there's a lot of deception with this today. What's the deception? Deception is, by the way, that building that they have there today. Who built this building on the Marat Machpelah? This was built by Hurdus, Herod. Herod, right, was a king. Was a king in the Second Temple era. And he wasn't really Jewish, by the way, this guy. He was like a slave, whatever. He became Jewish, he converted, whatever. So what happened was that this Herod built that building. He was like a builder, this guy. He liked to build a lot. So that's one of the edifices that he built. He built that building over there. He also built, by the way, he rebuilt the whole Second Temple. The older one he knocked down, and he built like a whole new building, which was supposed to be like the most beautiful building in the world, right? There was nothing like it. Something out of this world. So they say they also built this building. But by the way, what the deception is like this, right? That when you look at it from the outside, it looks like a small place, but really inside it's very large. So what do I care? The practical difference is because when you go down there, right, in the caves or the cave area, actually the bodies are buried very deep inside the cave. It's not really in the area where the building is so much. Why is that a deception? Deception is because when you go over there, right, because of the tourist attraction, that this place has. So what they do is like they have like a sign, like Yitzhak Avinu, Avram Avinu, like as if they're buried like in this area, in this place, But it's actually like it's all sham because they're not buried in that area at all. They're buried much, much deeper in the cave. But they're making this, to make it like, the effect of, like as if we know like where they're buried. We don't really know anything where they're buried. Right? They say, by the way, that if you try to go into that place, since it's the Petach of Gan Eden, it's the opening of Gan Eden, so you may not come out alive, because they might kill you over there. You understand? The angels may take care of you over there. So really, it's not people don't really have access to that at the actual burial ground over there where Avram Avinu was buried because it's very, very deep inside the cave, as we said. I don't know what the story is. Maybe the government tried to go in there. I don't know what they did. God knows. You never know what they do, right? They won't tell you. Right? They'll keep it hush. So.
Rabbi, are we supposed to take these metaphors?
Yeah.
Like you just said, if you go there, they'll kill you.
Right.
Seriously, or?
Oh yeah, these are serious things. I'm talking seriously. You know why? Because there are certain things in this world that God doesn't want to be revealed. Certain locations, right? Mm-hmm. Like for instance, one of them is the burial plot of Moshe Rabbeinu. Mm-hmm. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu was buried outside the land of Israel. He wasn't able to come in, right? By the way, that's also called Israel. It's like a secondary Israel. It's like there's two levels of Israel. There's the inner Israel, the West Bank, which is called the West Bank, and there's the Eastern Bank of the outside of Israel. But it's also considered to be Israel. He was buried over there. So what am I telling you is that they tried, by the way, very, very much, many kings and all kinds of people throughout history to find the burial place of Moshe Rabbeinu, and they never are able to find it. And they say, by the way, that what happens is that when you try to, if you actually hit the spot, they may kill you. You may wind up dead because they don't want anybody to find the burial place of Moshe Rabbeinu. It's not something which is accessible. Another thing is, by the way, there's another story which is it's a true story that they say, right, that there are certain artifacts, from the Bet HaMikdash, the first Bet HaMikdash, like the Aron HaKodesh, where the Sefer Torah is supposed to be over there. Right, the tablets of the Ten Commandments, they're in there, right? So they say that what happened was that one of the kings, Yoshiao, he buried those artifacts under the ground over there on the Temple Mount. So they say, by the way, what happened was that it's in a certain place over there, right? And it was known to the inner circles over there where exactly it was, but not everybody knew. So what happened was that one day there was this worker over there who was working in the temple. Like one of the Levim over there, right? Levites, So he's working over there, and he spots like a place on the floor where the tile is like kind of like uneven, like it's like knocked out, whatever, not exactly smooth. So he looks at it over there and says, "Why? What is this?" So he uncovers it, and he realizes, this was the burial plot of that, the Aron HaKodesh, and that's where it was buried. It was over there. So he realized what it was. So he ran to get people to come and to dig in there over there. So he died, right? He died. Hashem killed him. So in the end, right, what happened was that all the people who discovered that place all died. They all died. Yeah. So there are things like this. Like Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want certain things to be revealed in the world. And if you do reveal it, right, you could pay with your life. So a person has to know, right? Don't go too far. There are certain things which you're not allowed to reveal as well. Whatever. Anyway, we're not really dealing with that in our daily lives in Migo Park, right? But just to let you know. So getting back to what we're saying, Rabotai, is that Avraham Avinu was willing to take this place by force also. So the reason is because this burial plot, it's the opening of Gan Eden, so it's a very, very important strategic thing for the world. And nobody should have this place. By the way, they say that there's also a lot of a blessing that comes from there, right? A lot of good things that come from this place. So it shouldn't belong to anybody but the Jewish people, this place, right? We are to always be in the hands of the Jewish people. And this is exactly why he paid for it. Why? Because what happens is that sometimes, even though Hashem gave us Eretz Israel, but the Goyim come and say, now, there's a New Testament, that says something else, I don't know, whatever. They try to make all kinds of claims, all kinds of this, all kinds of nothing. So what we tell them is, listen, I paid for it, leave me alone, okay, you don't believe in God, you don't believe in the Bible, fine, but I paid for that with my hard-earned money. What do you want from me now?
Yeah, but you paid for a small building.
Right, but he paid for the cave, because the building wasn't even there at that time, you understand?
Okay, he
paid for the cave, that's what he paid for.
Beautiful, he bought 5 yards by 5 yards.
No, he bought the whole thing.
What is it? That was
the whole football field.
Original. How much
right,
is the
right.
whole thing?
The whole field is like a football field over there. So he bought the whole thing over there. You understand? So that's Avraham Avinu bought the whole thing. That's why he had to pay a lot of money. And by the way, they say, right, there's also 2 other places where we find that our forefathers paid money to buy that place from the Goyim, even though it really belongs to us anyway. Eretz Yisrael belongs to the Jews. And it always has and always will be. That's no right. Sometimes it was stolen from us. That's something else. But actually, the ownership is God's, and God gave it to us. So what happened was that what was I saying? Remind me what I was saying.
2 other places where the ownership.
Right. So there were 2 other places also. One of them also was a Temple Mount, right? That when David HaMelech discovered that was supposed to be the place where the temple was supposed to be built, so he bought that also with money. At that time he was king, and he owned, everything was in the hands of the Jews. Almost everything was in the hands of the Jews. There were some Goyim also left over, but in the sense that, in a general sense, everything was in the hands of the Jews. But still, he went, and it was owned by a Goy at that time. By the way, there was a Goy who owned it. He was a good man. He was a righteous man, this Goy. But anyway, what happened was that David went to him and said, I want to pay for this full price. Sell me this piece of land, right? At that time, it was like a vineyard. He was growing over there wine. He was making wine over there. That's very nice, right? So yeah, so he bought it from him. He also with full money, right? Full cash. And he told him, by the way, this guy, he tells him, I'll give it to you for free. You're the king. What am I I'm going to take money from you? I love you. You're my king. I'll give you anything you want. No, I'll pay full money. Pay full money for it. There's also another thing, right? Which is the Shem, right? Where Yosef HaTzadik was buried. Over there also, Yaakov Avinu, right, paid for that full money when he came back from the house of Lavan. He paid for that also full money. And by the way, these 3 places that I just told you now are all disputed today very heavily. But the Arabs always are trying to take these places away from us. Until this day, right? The dispute goes on and on and on. By the way, it's an amazing thing that you should know in Shechem, where the cave of Yosef, the grave of Yosef over there. The Arabs have burned this place like just 10 times in just in our lifetime. They just keep burning it. Every time the Jews build something there, they burn it down. It's like it's an amazing thing. They're so obsessed with this place. They always come there and try to make strife and make problems. They burn the place, they damage the place, they denigrate everything they do. That's the way it is. So these 3 places, our forefathers, they knew, right, it was going to become a big dispute for these places. So therefore, they bought them with full money in order there should be no rights, nothing to talk about. Okay. By the way, should we stop here? Or I'm asking you guys. Okay, should we stop here? Okay, so we'll continue next time. Pick it up next time. Chazak u'baruch. I thought we were going to go faster, but we said a lot of things, whatever. So
everything was educational.
God bless.